Welcome to the Kyero.com Spanish Property Podcast, where we interview people who recently purchased a home in Spain. They tell us what worked, what didn't, and what they'd do differently next time. I'm Beth Davison, and today I'm speaking with Simon from Farnborough, who purchased a house in Pruna, Seville. Originally on a motorbike holiday through Spain, Simon was inspired to buy, and one day hopes to relocate permanently. He loves the socialness of his town, where there's always a fiesta planned. He worked with estate agent Olvera Properties to find his dream home in Spain. Check out the show notes at kyero.com/podcast to find links and resources mentioned in this episode.
My name's Simon. For a job, I'm a civil servant, and I purchased a house in a town in Andalusia called Pruna.
Very nice. And how long ago did that first thought happen of perhaps I want to buy somewhere in Spain?
Oh, probably about 20 years ago.
What was the reason?
I don't like the UK weather. Much prefer the Spanish weather, the Spanish way of life. It was an ambition for a long time.
And at the moment, you use it as a holiday home?
Yeah, it's a holiday home at the moment. I try and get out there as much as I can.
Is the overall goal that you might live there?
Oh, absolutely. Sooner rather than later, hopefully.
Oh, cool. All right, fantastic. So after this initial seed is planted, you know that you want to buy over there. For you, how does the whole process start? What did you start by doing?
I drew up a shortlist of what I wanted in the property and its location.
And what kind of things were on that shortlist?
It was quite a short shortlist. I wanted it to be in a proper Spanish town, so I didn't want any tourists. I wanted it to be near the sea. I knew I couldn't afford anywhere at the sea, at the coast. So I had a sort of like within half hour reach of the coast. I wanted the house to be in the town itself so that I could walk to bars and restaurants rather than living out in the sticks in the middle of nowhere. Have a really lovely house, but you have to drive everywhere. And I also wanted the town to have squares with bars and restaurants off of it.
Lovely. Okay, cool. So a pretty comprehensive list and with kind of specific things on there. What happens after that point?
So I had that shortlist, and then it was a case of trying to match my shortlist with locations in Spain, which took me quite a while and quite a few trips over to Spain, literally starting off over on the east side of Spain and working my way across to the west side of Spain, finding where I liked.
And how well did you know it anyway?
Yeah, I knew all the more touristy destinations, but that wasn't what I wanted. So it was a case of doing a little bit of online research, and then planning, trips over there to check it out and see whether I liked it. Went like that for quite a long time. And then I had a recollection of a motorbike trip that I'd actually done many years ago, down to the racetrack at Jerez, and I knew that I liked that area of Spain, and I stayed in a town called Ronda, and so of course I was riding about all that area, and I was kind of getting a bit annoyed when I was looking along. At the time, I was out looking out near Valencia, in a town called Oliva. And then I remembered, no, I preferred the other side of Spain. So then I started concentrating my search on that part of Spain, because I knew, actually, that's where I want to be.
Okay, fantastic. And then once you find the region, presumably everything gets a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many viewings would you say that you went on?
Well, what I ended up doing was I then narrowed it down even more to the towns that I wanted to look at. And what I did was I actually, using the internet again, narrowed it down to a short list of properties that fitted my criteria. And then I took a week and I viewed a load of properties in about half a dozen towns that I really liked the look of. And I narrowed it down even further that way.
Yeah, fantastic. Did you have the help of an agent at this point?
Yeah, there was a few agents. To be honest, what happened was I started down on in some towns outside of Malaga, and some of the agents that I dealt with down there weren't I wouldn't say they weren't particularly helpful. Yeah.
And presumably weren't going to leave you immediately after it was all done, because it's actually quite important to still have some
Oh,
contact
absolutely.
after completion.
Ironically, I still have odd contact with them now about things that's still, I'll get a random thing happen, and I'll be phoning them up saying, "Do you know anything about this?"
Yeah, and that's great that they're still there for you.
Yeah. It's to be honest, that's what kind of set apart that agent from any of the other agents. It was almost like, it's kind of hard to explain. It's almost like they weren't really estate agents. It was like they encompassed a lot more.
And they were people who kind of cared about you getting what you needed out of the situation.
Yeah.
Which sounds like the perfect scenario.
And it was, through the whole buying process, if I'd have been trying to, even though I knew all the details that I needed to know and the steps that I needed to go through, because they kind of helped you through every single step of the way, I think if I didn't have an agent like that, I'd probably still be trying to do it now.
Yeah, no, totally. And so this is Olvera Properties that we're talking about. So it sounds like they're very involved in the process, which is lovely. And then how many houses did they show you, and were they always sort of within that specific list that you'd started with of knowing what you wanted?
Yeah, it was. I ended up, I got in contact with them for one property in particular that I really liked the look of, which ironically is the one I ended up buying. But when I was speaking with them before I'd flown out there, and they were speaking to me about what I wanted, what my budget was and stuff like that, when I went over there, I met up with them it was on a Sunday actually, and they showed me 3 properties in the town Pruna that I bought in. They also showed me another 3 properties in the next town along in Olvera. So they gave me a lot of options that I probably hadn't thought of or looked at that hard, because I was kind of like, oh, that's the one I really like from them. So if I just see one from them, and then I'll move on to the next estate agent. So they gave me more options than I initially thought I was going to get from that particular agent.
Yeah, which is perfect. That's exactly what you want, really. Options were clearly going to be very useful for you. But you saw this, the one that you ended up buying. Let's chat about your specific home. What was it about that did you immediately know? Was it a kind of love at first sight situation when you walked through the door?
Yeah, it was. The thing was I'd seen it online on Kyero, and I saved it, and I kept going back to it. And all the ones I looked, and it's just like, there's something about the thing was, when you looked at the pictures, it was kind of, in a little weird way, it was kind of hard to get your head around the actual layout of the house, because there's lots of different parts to the house. It sounds really confusing if you don't know the house, but it had like an extension done in the past and a little bit of work done in the past. So it's almost like it was the old house and the new house all merged into one. But there was just something about it. It was quirky. I liked the quirky nature of it, which kept bringing me back to it. So then when I actually walked into the house, it almost like it brought it to life. All the pictures that I'd seen, they all instantly come to life. I fell in love with the place, and I could instantly see that I could put my stamp on it. What made it difficult was there was a house that's probably about 100 meters away from the one that I bought, which Olvera Properties showed me as well. And I sat on the fence between the two of them. I knew it was going to be one of those two. And the big,
oh no!
Yeah, and it was just like, I wish you hadn't have shown me this other one, because the house that I bought, I could see the potential in it, and I could really put my own personal stamp on it. That other house that I was really sitting on the fence, and I was getting splinters. I was sitting on the fence that much. There was nothing needed doing to it. It was perfect. And it was just like, well, do I want to have something I could put my stamp on, or do I want to have something that's absolutely perfect? And And I ended up going for the one to put my stamp on purely because the view was better.
Very good. You know what? You need one deciding factor and that counts.
Yeah, that was the one deciding factor because I've got a roof terrace which looks over the whole town and the surrounding countryside. And in the house that was perfect, didn't have that.
Lovely. And since completion, have you felt kind of completely confident in that decision?
Oh, absolutely.
Good.
It's probably the best thing I ever did.
And so for people starting this process, or maybe they're midway through this process, if you could do it all again, what would you do? Would you do anything differently? Or has it all been kind of how you expected it to be and how you wanted it to be?
It's actually been better than I was expecting. Because if you do, the thing is when you do your research, you end up, looking at different, like a lot of research nowadays done on the internet, and you end up looking at different websites where people give their opinions upon how something happened. The problem is the only opinions you ever get are the bad ones. Yeah, because they're the only people that bother writing anything. It's normally like, it's just the moaners that actually make their opinions known. The people that have actually had a good experience rarely make their opinions known. So when I went into it, I was expecting it to, have horrors and pitfalls and stuff like that, because that's all you ever hear, dodgy Spanish builders or dodgy corrupt this or dodgy this and this. So I went into it expecting to be having an uphill struggle.
Which is maybe a good thing, because it means you've got your wits about you, I suppose. That's the benefit of that, if people go in and kind of are a little suspicious. But so you found none of that to be true? No,
none of it. It couldn't have been smoother. It was easier than buying a car in the UK.
Wow.
It was just so smooth. From when I actually made the decision, from starting the paperwork to actually picking up the keys, was such a smooth process, and it could have been done even quicker. It's just I delayed it for 2 weeks purely because I wanted to be there to do it rather than...
That's a drop in the ocean. In this country, you delay for weeks, months, like it gets drawn out. But it seems like it's quite efficient in Spain.
Oh, absolutely. But I think from me putting in the offer and it being accepted to me picking up the keys was about a month. And it could have been done. It could have been done in 2 weeks. It's just the fact that I had to come back to the UK.
Well, great. I'm glad it was kind of such a straightforward process for you. What about any kind of difficulties? The fact that you're working, obviously, a foreign language. You're dealing with the kind of legalities of that. Also, budget and value for money when it comes to pound versus euro. Were there any kind of difficulties for you in that regard?
When it comes to... It was good and bad. There's a few things there. One, if we talk about value for money, the problem that was good was because it was not long after the Brexit vote, the property prices had dropped, which was good, but also the exchange rate dropped at the same time. which was bad. But I suppose if you look at it, it's all relative, really. With regard to the legalities, that's where, to be honest, where the agent really come into their own. Because let's take the first step you have to do is applying for your NIE number. I wouldn't have even known where to have gone to actually put the application in. My Spanish is basic to intermediate level, and this is where the agent were really, really good. They came with me, or one of the people from the agents came with me over to the office where it all gets done, filled out the paperwork with me, and then we went to the bank to make the relevant payments and stuff like that, and the paperwork was filed. They then went back to the office when it was ready. I was back in the UK by this point, to collect the paperwork to make sure that all the paperwork was, and the legality side of it was absolutely fine. So if I hadn't have had that assistance, I honestly don't know what I would have done. I probably would have ended up paying somebody to actually do it.
Yeah, because you just need that helping hand in some way. You need to be pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah, and it's that's the no, I wouldn't say the danger, but it's just one of those things. If you're not fully conversant with the local customs, the local language, the local laws, you just end up running around in circles and not getting anywhere. And that's where, I don't know, it's like the agent. It's almost like they specialise in it rather than just being a traditional estate agent of, right, well, give us your money, there's your keys. That would have been the legal problems, would have been trying to negotiate it myself.
Yeah, no, but fantastic. It sounds like you navigated those waters perfectly, kind of with their help, which is great.
Yeah, and like I say, even now I get like legal paperwork come through. Actually, even after the sale, the escritura needed to be finished and collected and all that sort of thing. I wouldn't have had a clue how to deal with it. The agent dealt with it and then let me know, right, everything's done, everything's ready, all the bills have been moved over to your name, all that side of things. They did, and it was all done. It was like, oh, that's easy.
Yeah, that's really nice. And if that's kind of after, I mean, they wouldn't need to. They'd get their commission either way. They wouldn't need to kind of involve themselves, but they do.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of a central difference. Awesome. And how many bedroom did you say your place was?
It's 4.
4-bed, ace. And do you mind me asking what your budget was for it, or what your initial kind of starting budget? Did you stick with it? Did you have to go over?
My initial budget was €50,000, but I was way under. Way under. I actually purchased it for 25 in the end.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's incredibly good value.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, there were some things when I first bought the place that as soon as I walked in, it was like, yeah, I want to change this. It's like knock that wall down, and I want to put a window in there, and I want to do this and I want to do that. So the money that I saved, I just got the building work done straight away.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And that's what you mean, presumably, when you say putting your own stamp on it. You don't just mean interior design-wise. Have you actually changed the structure of the property?
Yeah, and I've still got more plans that I want to do to make it perfect. Yeah, but there was like things that I initially wanted done straight away, and it was put my own stamp on it and being able to see what other people couldn't see in there. And I'm not an interior designer by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, but you've got all of these options, which is great. And when it comes to, you've mentioned, just to talk about lifestyle a little bit, you've mentioned obviously not wanting to stay in Britain forever. That's not your goal. So what is it about Spanish life that really appeals to you?
It's weird. It's almost like, in a lot of respects, the Spanish lifestyle reminds me of the way Britain was when I was growing up.
Oh, that's interesting. So kind of a nostalgia.
Yeah, it's a very... there's a tinge of nostalgia, but there's also a tinge of, in Britain, and I'm noticing it, I don't know about other people in Britain, but obviously I live in the south of Britain, and you're noticing that everybody's running around at 200 miles an hour, nobody's got any time for anybody, and it's all about work, and sleep, and then work a little bit more. It's kind of a lifestyle that leads to an early grave. And I prefer the Spanish lifestyle. It's not all about work. It's about family. It's about friends. It's about being social. And obviously the weather helps.
Totally. Yeah. Weather and food tend to be the most common answers there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I like the food as well. Yeah.
Lovely. So have you made any kind of contacts out there? Have you made friends with anyone? Is there a kind of community spirit?
Yeah, I've made quite a few friends out there, actually. There is quite a bit of a community spirit, because the thing is, it's quite a small town. So I wouldn't say everybody knows everybody, but you know lots of people. And yeah, obviously there is some British people there. I don't just want to be hanging around with British people. I want to, engage in the Spanishness and astound them with my bad Spanish. Improving Spanish, yes, improving Spanish. The worst bit is when you speak Spanish to them, they answer you in English, and you're just like, yeah, and you're just like, is my Spanish that bad? And they say no, but you say it with an English accent. It's quite funny.
Yeah, exactly. It'll take practice.
So I want to. There is a big community there, and quite a small town. They have quite a lot of social things going on. They have like the fiestas and the carnivals and stuff like that. And there's always things going on, and it's things that, being a foreigner in the town, you're never excluded from it. You're welcomed into it, and they want you to come into it. So that's something about the town that I really, really like as well.
Perfect. And I think you've given absolutely loads of advice, but I was just thinking lastly, as a kind of thought to leave people on, what would you say as a big piece of advice for people wanting to do what you're doing?
Don't waste time, just do it. Don't think I'll put it off until I retire. Just do it now as soon as you can.
Fantastic. And do all your research, which you were clearly very diligent with.
Yeah. I went a bit anorak mode on something.
No, I think very sensible, but I think it's a nice hybrid of don't rush it, but also don't put it off. Start the process now if it's what you're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's perfect. Well, thank you, Simon, so much for chatting to me. I feel like we've got loads of information there.
Anytime.
And I'm glad it's gone so well. And good luck with the rest of the renovations and things that you're going to do. And I really hope you do eventually move out there. Sounds a great plan.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you for listening. And thanks to Simon for sharing his experiences, along with Olvera Properties for their help to make this episode possible. I completely empathised with Simon's indecision and love the expression of being so on the fence you get splinters. Good to hear that he's thrilled with his decision though. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. This podcast is produced by Kyero.com, and our mission is to connect you with estate agents and properties throughout Spain. Whether your dream home is a rustic farmhouse surrounded by olive groves or a lock-up and leave apartment on the seafront, you'll find everything you need at Kyero.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate your 5-star rating on iTunes. It helps us reach and connect more people with their dream home in Spain. And whenever you're ready, here are 4 ways we can help you. Ask a question by emailing beth@kyero.com. We'll try and answer them all in an upcoming Q&A episode. Get a location guide also by emailing beth@kyero.com. We'll reply with the latest data and information on the areas you're interested in. Calculate your budget. Simply visit kyero.com/budget, enter 2 numbers, and you're done. Be our guest. If you've already purchased your home in Spain, we would love you to share your story on the podcast. Just email beth@kyero.com and we'll take it from there. Next week, I speak with David from Durham, who owns not 1 but 4 houses in Oliva, Valencia. As not just an owner but also a landlord in Spanish property, David tells me how his first purchase of a holiday home eventually grew into a new venture and a bit of a pension plan for he and his wife. I'm Beth Davison, and you've been listening to the Kyero.com Spanish Property Podcast. I'll see you next week.